With over 500 episodes, Dennis Gage, My Classic Car, you guys have seen that over the years, inspiring a whole new movement for future generations. Dennis has the opportunity to hang out with some amazing people and places all across the globe. We'd like to invite in Dennis Gage. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Hey, nice to be here, guys and gals.
Hello. Yeah. So what's your theory on roundabouts, Mr. Dennis? Have you had your fare?
I've been traveling to England since the 70s, and I'm fine with them, And in fact, they go the other way around there.
Yeah, it's true.
They've been around forever in the UK, and it seems like, I don't know, in popularity for the last 10 years, it seems like some folks are still having trouble with their roundabouts.
I think it's just the new concept thing.
Well,
I mean, just think of drifting, though. Just drift through it.
Oh, there you
drift
go.
The entire thing, and then just drift out of your exit. It's perfect.
That's it. Dennis, you have been on television. You have kind of premiered so many different unique people, places in their automotive rolling works of art. There was a life before My Classic Car, Mr. Dennis Gage. We got to go back into history and have you share with folks about some of the pretty cool things you did before you got onto television there.
Yeah. Well, I started out as a child. And it kind of just went from there. But yeah, no, it's like the late great Jerry Garcia said, what a long, strange trip it's been. Because it really has been. I really did start out as a child and just a small town country boy. Grew up on a farm, and then and again, now I'm on TV. But there were some things between that. I wanted to get off the farm. Because farming is a lot of work.
Yes.
The farm is still in the family. By the way, this year is the 100th year.
Wow,
that's
awesome.
Centennial Farm.
Congrats.
Yeah, but it was like, man, there's got to be an easier way than this. And so I went to college, which was kind of the thing you did back then. And it was like really the first generation of my family to do that. But I was pretty good with math and science and stuff like that in high school and thought I should maybe go do that. So I escaped the farm and went to college and did undergrad school and majored actually in both chemistry and physics. I had a triple major of mathematics.
Wow.
Which I dropped being the slack dog that I was. Just didn't really want to do it. And then I did a bunch of quantum physics research.
You didn't stop.
Wow.
You didn't stop.
Yeah,
you was like, okay, we got to keep continuing in that. Yeah.
Right. So it was like, quantum physics and all that. And I was supposed to go right on to graduate school and go into theoretical chemistry, theoretical physics. But I was like absolutely crispy, burned out. And I was also a musician all my life. And I'd gone to a concert. This was like in outside of Chicago. It was like 1975. It was the Eagles concert in a fairly small venue. But the warm-up act had like a pedal steel guitar player who just like totally blew me away. And I said, man, I got to get me one of those. So I literally went out and bought one the next day, and then taught myself to play it. And 7 months later, I was touring. Was playing with bands in Chicago area, and then I was touring and playing opening for Charlie Daniels and Waylon Jennings.
Oh, neat.
So you went from this heavy duty, it seemed like you were in school since 1940, knee deep in a lot of physics, chemistry, and so on, and the music was calling. As a child, did you have an attraction with music, or it was just that
Oh yeah,
bug?
no, I played in all sorts of rock bands and folks the folk scene and high school bands. I play a lot of stuff, or I did. And, instead of going to grad school, I started a band and stuff, and my parents were so proud. And after 2 years on the road, though, it was clear that was going to shorten my life expectancy. So, staring down the barrel of a 45 in Selma, Alabama, I said, I think I'll go to graduate school.
Wow. So wait a minute.
Yeah.
So Dennis, somebody pulled a gun on you in Alabama? Is that what, during a gig?
Yeah, we were. Well, we played at a club in Selma for like a week, and then, at the end of the week, it was like the club owner goes, "Yeah, I didn't have as good a week as I thought, so I'm going to stiff you for this amount of money." And we argued. He argued back, and he had artillery. So he won. So he did the typical rock and roll thing. You go back to the hotel, you trash the place, and then you head to the county line, the state line, as quickly as you could at 3 a.m. And then so I decided to go to graduate school, and was also kind of a winter camper and skier and stuff like that, and went out west and ended up getting a PhD in chemistry at the University of Idaho, and climbed most every peak in the Pacific Northwest at the time, and some of them in dead of winter and stuff, and was there when Mount St. Helens blew up, and that ended up being the basis of my thesis. So then I was like, Dr. Gage, what's up with that?
Dr. Gage. Wow. So tell us about Mount St. Helens. Were you hiking, mountaineering? What were you? Or was this just during a time?
Well, no, we were living at University of Idaho is, basically on the Washington-Idaho border.
Sure.
300 miles away from Mount St. Helens. But I remember it was like, 1980, maybe 20th, I think. And, this thing's been like, kind of smoking and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, man, there's a volcano out there. And we don't have volcanoes a lot, It's not
like we're in the South Pacific or anything. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, what, so what? It's what a big deal. And there was this, this Renaissance fair that was happening that particular weekend. And it was funny because I wondered in like the 70s, where'd all the hippies go? And they actually all went to Moscow, Idaho, which was where I
So that was like a mini Haight-Ashbury, I would imagine. Totally. Sure. Yeah.
And so the Renaissance fair is going on, and I got up in the morning, I look out the window, I'm like, man, there's this black cloud on the western horizon. There's a storm coming in. I'm going to go to the Renaissance fair before that hits, and and commune with all these hippies. And once I got there, though, it was clear. The word through the crowd was, that ain't a storm. That's an ash cloud. And, Mount St. Helens had blown the top off, and this was rolling across the state. We're 300 miles away, and we got like 2 inches of ash.
Wow, yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. It went to blackest night. It rained ash for, like hours. And it wasn't until like 9 o'clock that night that you kind of saw sun on the horizon. There may be a tomorrow,
Oh, my.
It was great. And in the morning, like, you woke up and it was like dead quiet. Even the birds were freaked out. They're like, what is this? So that ended up, I ended up being the guy that analyzed Mount St. Helens ash, because I had this novel laser technique that was I was just playing with it because it had a freaking laser on it. It was like, wow, look at this thing. It's this big honking laser. And it turned out to be the one thing that could do it. So that was the basis of that. And
wow.
So the timing of all of this.
Timing is everything.
Unbelievable,
like show of hands. How many of you have had a volcano erupt just when you needed it? Show of hands.
I don't see anybody raising their hands right now.
Come up. Rarely do any hands come up in that situation.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty significant. I mean, there was a contribution of science on your part that helped.
But I'm that kind of guy. I am. And so, from there I got offered a gig at Proctor Gamble. And so I went there as a pure scientist, but then moved into product development, did, most of their food products through the 80s. And, one of the developers of Pringles and the crispy, chewy, like the soft batch cookies, crispy on the outside.
That was a big deal. Pringles. Yeah. I mean, because potato chips were boring until Dennis Gage came around. I mean,
exactly.
We needed cylinders. And was that part of your engineering background? Did you say, get it out of the bag and put it in a cylinder?
But does Pringles contain any potatoes?
Well, that's...
They do. They really, what they are is instant mashed potatoes.
Oh.
Mashed potatoes made into a dough sheet and then fried, and poof, you've got Pringles.
Okay,
the most over-engineered food product on the planet.
But from a marketing point of view, Dennis, I mean, you were part of that team. It was ingenious.
They were
because
stackable.
It was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that was so I did a decade there, and then I was made an offer I couldn't refuse, and I became the head of global product development for a Bristol-Myers Squibb company. And have you ever seen Boost? The nutritional drink Boost?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's mine, too. I did that product for Bristol-Myers. Nestle owns it now. So I did that, and I had this roving ambassador gig where I traveled all over the world, and, it was kind of the liaison between marketing and technology because I was Dr. Gage, but I knew a lot of marketing from a decade at Proctor Gamble, and, I did that for 5 years, and I was like, I just was fed up with it, and I actually was in Bangkok, Thailand, where I said, screw this, I cannot do this anymore. And I quit in Bangkok and wasn't even sure how I was getting back here, but I did. And the guy said, look, I hear you, I understand. Now do the rest of this Asian tour, and then when you get back, if you still want to, resign, I'll work that with you. And so I came back and said, no, I still want to resign. But that was partly because I started to play around with this little show. I met this guy, and he had an idea for a show, and he was looking for a host, and he couldn't find a host all over the country. It was TV guys that didn't know anything about cars, and car guys who couldn't put three words together into a sentence, and, and I was I knew a lot about cars just because I'm a car guy, and I was kind of a character, and I had a hell of a mustache. And so we did this camera test, and he's like, hey, you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I got a good day job. So that was like 1996.
I got to ask you a question, Dennis. I mean, this is an incredible journey, quite the accomplishments. Magnus Walker has a TEDx talk that's pretty inspiring, and he does get, in general, knee-deep with the fact that you got to go with your gut. It always served him well. You had seen quite a few transitions, because a lot of folks are listening now, and they may be not so much in a rut, but they may not be feeling that particular gig at the time. How did you transition and say, you know what, I'm going full bore? Where were you at, sort of in a spiritual place, minding and matching sort of the physical sense of what was going on in front of you?
Well, I've given, I gave the commencement address at my undergrad alma mater, and the whole theme of that was really the merits of failure and quitting. Because I'm actually a proponent of both failure and quitting. You have to fail because that's how you learn.
That's awesome.
And you learn all the ways that things don't work on your way to finding out how things do work. And quitting is what you do when you can't figure out why you're doing what you're doing, because so many people get stuck in dead-end jobs and stuff like that because they just won't trade this false sense of security for the fear of the unknown, for the unknown. And, it's just like life's too short. If you really don't like what you're doing, you need to go do something else.
Yeah, and, I think sometimes we get into sort of this drone mode of sort of this is our identity, and we can't go beyond that. I think that's some of what you're saying regarding the whole failure point. I mean, failure should, to a certain degree, be accepted, but the courage is really what, and going back in history with what you've done, you had the courage behind you to take those steps.
Yeah, well, I've always kind of just, I don't know. I'm like, well, that looks interesting. I think I'll do that. And I get to a point a lot of times where once I quit learning, then it's time to go do something else. Like I kind of got this figured out. Now I need to go do something else and figure that out. So that's always been kind of a driver for me. And I think even in tragedy, there's opportunity. You just have to. As a matter of fact, by the way, I think I can boil down my whole life. If I had to give advice to people, in life, I could boil it down to two words, and it's pay attention.
Attention to detail.
There's stuff going on around you all the time, and if you're not paying attention, you don't notice it. And it's like. If you just have your peripheral vision, it's like you see something over there and go, huh, that's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
But but stuff, it's like, right. My life's been the right place at the right time, but so much of that is recognizing that. You go, oh wow, oh this looks like the right place. Oh my God, look, it's the right time. And that's, it's just pay attention.
Yeah. Well said, Dennis. If you're just joining us, Dennis Gage, talented, been around, since 1997 with the My Classic Cars show. We just dove into a whole series.
Yeah, we did.
Prior to the show, but I want you guys to stay tuned because we are going to dive in to the very beginnings of this show and all of the unique and eclectic rides that Dennis has seen over the years, sharing some stories and picking his brain, and then also figuring out the coloring book with Fireball Tim. He's got it out.
That's going to be cool.
Dennis, hang in with us.
And I really thought that the two words that are the two things that you were going to maybe advise people was witness a volcano and grow a mustache.
We are honored to have President and CEO of Mad Stash, Dennis Gage, and his team at My Classic Car has truly taken us over the years into a world of automotive goodness. Welcome back, Dennis.
Great to be here.
Back in 97, I believe the year was, here you are. TV wasn't necessarily full of automotive unless it was a funny sitcom here and there with sights and sounds of some automotive. Would you say that you were kind of at the right place, right time, and maybe one of the first to really highlight with some sensibility and have fun the whole industry of classic cars and so on? Back then it was the, the cable was in its infancy, and you kind of had, suddenly you had kind of niche networks, and we started on TNN, which was 5 days a week. That was country music's MTV, and that's right.
That's right.
Hunting, fishing, and cars.
The Nashville Network.
That's right.
And to this day, the reason we watch car shows on Saturday and Sunday mornings is because TNN trained us to do that 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. And so this show really was, you could do this back then. You couldn't do this now to save your soul. But, we were able to create this show and get it on. And it's just a complete, you never know. It turned out to be basically, catching lightning in a jar because it just worked.
Well, that's Mr. Dr. Dennis Gage is always in the right place at the right time, hanging out over here by the volcano. Here's your invention, giving us Pringles.
For the lotto. If only for the lottery, but everything else has really been that way. So, it took off, and we went through, I've lost several networks as they went away. TNN became Spike, which then became Paramount, and then, we went over to Speed Vision, this little network, which became Speed when Fox bought it, and then that went away and became our FS1. So I've really been through the mill, but I'm basically the godfather of this whole category. I'm the OG.
Well, we bow in praise. I tell you what, and I wanted to hear that from you for a reason, because you are a legend and an inspiration, not only just to, I'm just saying it, Doc. You are. Many of us, and I saw this a lot on my social media and in some of sort of my conversations with folks. We were excited to have you on, but not to sort of condescend here, but you created a movement that said, hey, you know what? I have a build, and this is way before YouTube, obviously, but you gave a lot of other folks like the Kindigits of the world and so on the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Okay, I've been doing this automotive thing for a while. I'm going to highlight this funky Volkswagen Bug. That's my project.
The thing, I was the first guy to put Dave Kindig on TV, as a matter of fact.
What was it, 08, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a long time ago. And there's a lot of shows out there now that can really, trace their lineage one way or another back to mine. But I think overall, just from the hobby standpoint, back in the 80s, if you weren't in this hobby, you didn't even really know it existed. And the one thing I'll credit my show for really is bringing the car hobby to the general population. As we said at P&G, the general pop. But it took it outside this hobby that if you weren't one of us, you weren't one of us. Suddenly people see a car show on TV, they go, yeah, that's kind of looks like fun. I hear there's one in town next week. I think we'll go check it out. And the hobby, as has the aftermarket, which follows it. I mean, the hobby's strong because the aftermarket's strong, and the aftermarket's strong because the hobby's strong. But all of that stuff was really driven by television. By the early days of automotive television kind of exposed this hobby to a broader population, and it just exploded.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, from kids, inner cities, South Bronx, to, I mean, literally to Southern California, Florida, North Dakota. And by the way, guys, get on to myclassiccar.com. Treat yourself.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you are binging and this and that.
Don't bother with that. Go to YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel.
YouTube channel. Very good.
My Classic Car TV on YouTube.
Go to YouTube.
Well, speaking of that, so one of my favorite episodes is going to be the one that you did here in Arizona. And that was with Mr. Ernie Adams with the dwarf cars.
Ernie is such an amazing guy.
That was one of my favorite episodes.
Have you ever met him?
I have not, but I would love to.
Geez.
Yeah,
just go there.
He's out of Maricopa.
He's hanging out there.
The Dwarf Car Museum.
Yeah. He is so incredible. I know everybody, and I've never met anybody like Ernie Adams.
Well, it's funny because when Frank was talking about, dumping out a refrigerator, this whole episode was based on cars being made out of some of these refrigerators.
That's what he started with. He made a car out of 7 or 9, I can't remember, refrigerators, and because there's a lot of good sheet metal in a refrigerator. And he got the idea just in a junkyard. There's like a wheel laying against the refrigerator. He goes, that sort of looks like a car.
You guys check out
that. It was.
You got to check out the episode.
Well, check out YouTube for sure with My Classic Car. But if you want to dive deeper with Ernie's outfit, dwarfcarmuseum.com. Very cool stuff. All handmade custom cars.
Dwarf cars. I mean,
they're dwarf.
11/16 scales. Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. I got to ask you from. All right, so you're sitting down. You've got your camera, man, woman. You've got your team. You've got your calendar laid out over the years. And here comes this movement of, I don't know what exact year, but social media. And then there's this new Madison Avenue word called millennials. Like all of a sudden, like we went from Xers, boomers, the Billy Idol generation, the boomer. And during the course of your many years on TV, did you ever, with your team, get a little nervous initially about what was said? Millennials will never get into car culture, and if you did have to address some of that demographic shift, was that a conscious effort, or did Dr. Dennis say, "Hey, I'm going to do this show and bring people into an amazing world regardless"? What was your thought on that whole transition?
It was probably more the latter. I don't do a lot of hand wringing over that. I mean, I know a lot of people do. And I know SEMA does, and I was on the board of directors for 7 years, and there's a lot of this, my paws and whiskers, what are we going to do, but I know young people aren't that into cars like we were, but they're not going to be young forever. And part of the reason they're not into cars is, for one thing, the hobby's becoming ridiculously expensive. It's not within reach like it used to be. I mean, we got into it because it's cheap. And these cars were cheap; they were easy to fix, and it's what you did. They aren't cheap anymore; they're stupidly expensive, and it takes money to do this. Well, you don't have money when you're young; you have money when you're old, and so. It's a twist on the Who's My Generation. Hope I die before I get old. My twist on that is unless you die, you're going to get old, and once if you make it there, you amass a certain amount of personal wealth or holdings, or whatever you want to call it, and things change. So I guess I look at it like, well, look, they're not making any more 69. Well, it's a bad example because they are actually making 69 Camaros.
Yes.
Dynacorn is. But so they're not making any more 54 Kaisers. They're not making any more, and the ones that are still here ain't going anywhere. These things are going to, the car hobby probably almost like it is right now, will live just like it is right now forever, because these cars are just going to get passed around. They're still going to be cool, and they'll be cool to these younger people when they get older. They become a form of art. They become a status symbol. They become a lot of different things. And cars of their youth, the hot hatches and things like that, those are going to be really hot. There's going to be all these Xers and stuff that are, like restoring, 80 CRXs. So I don't wring my hands about it quite as much. And yeah, it's all going electric. It's got to go electric. It's the right thing. There'll always be gas. There'll always be gas for toys. And that's what these cars really are. Nobody's daily driving a 54 Kaiser. They're toys. And so there'll always be gas. And you know what? The aftermarket will always make stuff to make whatever you're driving go faster and look better.
I got to ask you on that point. Aftermarket's huge.
What we do.
Yeah, aftermarket's huge.
We do.
Yeah. SEMA, you said on the board.
Aftermarket is a $40 billion a year market.
Currently, I want to bring this up, and I have to interject. There's a lot of industry folks that listen to this show, and currently there are white papers out. SEMA did a whole big study on how are we going to address the fact, and let's stay away from legislation now. The Massachusetts Right to Repair Act, there's an appeal against that by the OEs. We don't want to get in the weeds there. But how is a modern-day technician going to be able to do a lift kit with ADAST or have to get into the center stack? You served with SEMA. Is that of concern currently for the performance aftermarket, or as it is just as you said, hey, you know what? We've gotten through it before. We'll get through it again. What are your thoughts there on technology and the aftermarket?
I think we've got through it before. We'll get through it again. But SEMA plays a huge role in that. They're are on the ground people in DC, and then there's a legislative component to this. But the American industry is really innovative. And, if there is a buck to be made, we're going to figure out how to make it.
This is true. Yeah.
And so, I don't have, quite the concern. Yeah, man, there's not going to be gas, new internal combustion cars some years in the future. That's just the way it is. But the ones that are here ain't going anywhere. My God. Leno's still playing with 100-year-old steam stuff.
Steam, yeah, those Stanley steamers. And by the way, guys, tuning in, you got to go on to YouTube and check out. I watched, I guess back in, you did a whole 20 years ago or whatnot in 2000, Jay Leno's playing around with the Stanley steamers. And I love the fact that you guys both, you're not only highlighting the car, but you're in there tinkering, is it? It wasn't like Jay said, hey, Louie, come fix the car.
Absolutely. And now what we're releasing on YouTube is we're releasing all the raw footage from those shoots 20 years ago. It's just really a lot of fun.
It is fascinating.
Just how it went down. It's not like edited. It's just how it went down.
Yeah, no sizzle.
And it just, his stuff, it's crazy. It's just amazing. They're toys. The steam cars are toys. Muscle cars are toys. They're all just toys now. None of us are commuting in those. So fine, and toys will live forever.
I think the child at heart, as we get older, and then the wallet of heart gets a little bigger, then that's a great point you make. I don't think otherwise. I got to ask you, you've collaborated with done a lot of work with Jay Leno. Fireball Tim, our good friend out of Southern California. We've done a lot of stuff with him. Wheels and Waves and the Murphy Auto Museum. Has an amazing series of coloring books. What's that phone call like? Fireball says, Dr. Dennis Gage, we'd like to have you on the cover. What were your thoughts about that edition?
Yeah, it was really weird. It was out of the blue. And Fireball is an amazing artist. I really wasn't familiar with him. And it's a weird way we got together. The link is kind of, oddly enough, the link is Eddie Munster, kind of. That's a long story. But anyway, so Fireball really does he does call me up out of the blue and says, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. And, I think you'd be a great subject. And, we need a theme if we're going to do this. And so I checked him out a little bit and I'm going, okay, theme, well, I hate the name of the show, my show, by the way. My Classic Car. It just sounds so stodgy.
Why, though?
And 'cause
Is that, I mean, it was back then in you'd figure in 97, okay, that would be suitable. As the years progressed, did you just say maybe wasn't the great? I mean, how's that?
Yeah, well, it was suitable, but I still hated it. I hated it then. Because we just do everything, and especially as the show found its stride, because I've been doing this so long. And of course, you start out doing the mainstream stuff, but I've been Cuda Camaro Mustanged to death, and and it's not that I don't love all those cars, and I've owned all those cars, but after all this time, I'm looking for stuff that you just don't see every day, and you're not going to see it at every car show, and it's like I'll stumble on something and go, man, I've never seen one of these, or oh my God, it's been forever, and so the show's kind of become known for that. Wow, I didn't know that existed, or man, I haven't seen one of those forever. And so the theme of the coloring book became Orphans and Oddballs. Orphans being orphan marks like Nat. They don't exist anymore. Nash, Studebaker, Hudson. And then Oddballs, there's just a lot of weird stuff out there. And so that's what it is. And what I like about Tim Fireball is that he, his automotive renderings are really pretty true, pretty accurate. But then he puts those renderings in these fantasy environments.
Yes.
It's like accurate renderings in fantasy environments. And for a coloring book, what a combo!
It is. Yeah.
It is. You got all this stuff. It's like, okay, I can color the car. It's red. That's boring. But then there's all this stuff going on in his illustrations, and it's so much fun. And, his Sid Mead book, Sid with all this, futuristic, crazy stuff. And, of course, my good friend and one of my personal heroes, Gene Winfield.
Oh, yeah.
Great customizer. So it's, I'm glad Fireball found me because I think he is a unique talent. And, it's a fun book. I mean, he came out with this, I think, really cool book.
Somewhere there was a volcano going off, I think, Dr. Gage. I see you're in the right place at the right time.
Show of hands. How many people?
Yeah, right. You guys can check that out, fireballtim.com, going to Amazon. It is really cool, the Dennis Gage's Orphans and Oddballs coloring book. 20 of the kookiest, weirdest. We all love odd and weird,
I might
Susie.
have to have a coloring book. I have the Camaro one, and I have the Tony Dow one. I need an Orphans Oddball.
Yeah.
This one is cool, I got to tell you.
And I love that. I do want to address something. We've got just a few minutes. Many of our listeners across the country, in fact, we've got some Australian listeners. A lot of them are young technicians up and coming. We mention technology a lot. Sometimes we'll nudge folks and say, is the mechanic going the way of the elevator man? Of course, we say hashtag fake news. We're going to evolve. What would you say to a youngster that is just getting started and may feel like his passion for fixing cars doesn't mate up with the environment that he's in, and he feels like quitting?
Yeah, well, again, you got to do what does feel right. And I don't know if there's many better gigs out there, frankly. I mean, if you can become a certified tech these days, and there is, it ain't just wrenching. You really do have to understand the computer side of it and all that, but it's all out there. It's all achievable. And you can do it anywhere. You can take that skill and you can do it in Anchorage, or you can do it in, Phoenix, or you can do it in Bangor, Maine, because it's needed everywhere. Pay is good. Pretty soon you're going to be able to, almost dictate your pay because these people are in short supply. So I'm like, look, it's worth the work. Get good, get certified. This is a great gig.
Absolutely.
I really think it is. I think, again, it's not a fit. You might be in this and it feels terrible and it might not be right. That just can be a fact sometimes, But if it seems hard, well, that's not a problem. Just, tough it out and figure it out, because it's a pretty darn good gig.
Dennis, you are looking at one of the most, you've covered quite a few of the sort of orphans and oddballs, if you will. Is there a particular place or vehicle that has eluded you and you were after? Is there anything that we could kind of dig deep and maybe get some secret sauce stuff coming in the future?
Some scoop?
some scoop
No,
coming up?
For me, it's like the discovery process. The car I'm looking for is the one I've never seen. You know, so it's not like I'm searching this thing that I know what it is. I'm looking for this thing to pop up in my path. It's like Carlos Castaneda. It's like you only eat the mushrooms that pop up in your path. But anyway.
What about that one vehicle of Greg Ovist, his rear find?
Well, we had just real quick on Greg Ovist, a great local guy here. He's actually, when this was done, I guess back in the 50s, if you were a mechanic, this was before Bondo, and you had, okay, here's the Corvette, here's the Bel Air, here's this ride. Well, he actually bought, and we have that on our YouTube channel. We're not trying to self-promote here, but the car was a one of one.
One of one.
We went out and filmed it, and it truly had all kinds of eclectic arrangements. But Dennis, what made it special was this was all hand-tinkered, paneled, popped, hammer, no fancy, little weld, nothing fancy for way back when. And so I think what Susie is saying on the lines of our friend out in Maricopa, the sort of...
Yeah, Ernie Adams.
Ernie Adams.
The dwarf cars.
You find that extremely fascinating, and I think you really get jazzed when you can share almost like... What is the cooking show fella? God bless the guy. He passed away. Help me out.
Oh.
He traveled the world. Anthony.
Help me. Oh.
Come on. No, Anthony.
Nope.
No, that's wrong. Bourdain.
Thank you,
Good job.
Bourdain. What I'm saying, and this is official, Dr. Gage, you
boy.
are really bringing that whole element of world-like togetherness behind the automotive, like food and that sort of culture was, and that's inspirational, and that's why I'm trying to get you for some secret sauce. What's coming up? Are you going to go to Papua New Guinea?
My philosophy is that everybody gets to play, because that's the other thing. Some people are like, well, you don't have grease under your fingers, you're not one of us, or by God, that's not a real classic, or that's it. Hey, everybody gets to play. I mean, this hobby's got something for every budget, every garage. I mean, and it's all cool. Everybody gets to play.
And we need to play in life.
We need a T-shirt.
Yeah. All right, so Susie's going to call corporate there, Dr. Gage, and we're going to figure out how we trademark that one. Well, I tell you, it is an honor. In fact, we will have Gene Winfield on next month.
Nice.
And
he's awesome.
He is oh my gosh, he's incredible.
And we'll have Magnus.
We're hopeful, but the point is this, Dennis. We're going to bring you up because you do take us on a journey, and I honestly got to extend this big hugs gratitude. If you're ever, of course, we're out there in Southern California periodically, but certainly if you come down, we're kind of past that whole Scottsdale Car Week thing. But man, if you're ever in the Arizona, Phoenix area, we'd love to give you a tour of the garage. And our little 56 Hudson isn't quite the oddball, but we'd love to do a little walk around with you with the little 56 Huddy.
Love it. Can't pass it up.
An honor to have you on. Folks, catch YouTube, My Classic Car. Really binge watch and take yourself on a fantastic journey. And bring the kiddos in, man, because that's what it's about. Mr. Dennis Gage.
It's a family affair.
It is. We got to keep it happy. And we're post-COVID. You guys need to tinker. You had enough time tinkering behind that digital screen. Go get under a hood and play with a carburetor.
I think this was one of my favorite shows.
I think so, too. Thank you, Mr. Dennis Gage.
It's been one of my favorites also, actually.
Well, I want to give a shout-out. Speaking of favorite, our good friend Mark Green. You guys catch Mark Green Cars Yeah, because Mr. Dennis Gage is going to be on our friend Mark Green's Cars Yeah show. Big shout-out to that. Dennis, you're spending time with us, and we so appreciate that.
My pleasure.
We're going to follow up, maybe catch up with you. And if you ever get to Papua New Guinea and see what's on four wheels, we want to know about that. So we'll follow up with you. Dennis Gage, My Classic Car. Thank you so much.
Frank, Susie, thanks a lot.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you.
And that's what it's about. I mean, I think, but very interesting how he made that point. How many of you would agree, and we say this respectfully, young or, older folks, whatever, there is this sort of transitional period, and I've never heard it put it that way. Some said, well, technology will do this, and some would argue, well, they're doing LS swaps and Teslas, But it is just where we're at in life, and we got to play, and why not play in the automotive underhood.
That's right.
undercarriage
Oh my gosh,
industry,
this
yeah.
was one of my favorite shows. And I got to admit, anytime I see on world news that a volcano has erupted, guess who I'm going to think of?
We are. We are.